We continue the CFL discussion today, going out on video chat. Brian Wawryshyn joining us from Vancouver of the BC Lions podcast, Lions Den podcast. Good morning, Brian. How are you, my man?
I'm excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to have you. I know these guys were very excited to have you on to talk about the BC Lions. You don't sound yet that excited, Brian, to talk about the 1-6 BC Lions, man. What's the mood out there?
It's really tough. We were promised a very aggressive and exciting football team by Ed Hervey this offseason, and it's certainly been anything but that to start the season. So there's a ton of things wrong with this team, and it starts at the top and goes right down to the bottom. Every facet of the team, special teams, offense, defense, you can problems. So it's been very frustrating, and hopefully through the bye week here, Ed can make a few adjustments and get the team playing a little bit better anyway.
Well, I follow you on Twitter, and you certainly let it fly on a weekly basis, but particularly after that loss 45-18 to the Rough Riders on Saturday there at BC Place Stadium. Are you this disappointed because you expected more, or why are Lions fans so down?
Well, I think everybody expected more. You look at the preseason predictions. I think Vegas had the Lions as the favorites to win the Grey Cup, which I found kind of humorous. But I was on record as saying on our podcast that I thought it was going to take a year for this team to kind of settle in under Ed Hervey's vision. The problem right now is Ed Hervey's vision seems to have failed. He spent a lot of money on a select group of players. And I think you can do that if you go out and scout properly and find guys that can come in and make a difference on lower end entry level deals. But they haven't been able to do that. Their scouting didn't bring in enough depth for this team. The offensive line clearly doesn't have enough depth. The guys that aren't playing well can't be replaced because they don't have anybody to replace them. Suk Chung was brought in. He's injured. Joel Figueroa is a solid player. But, the rest of that offensive line has been a jigsaw puzzle that they're trying to put together, and they haven't been able to do that. So on the defensive side of the ball, the defensive line is the same thing. They can't pressure the quarterback. So, both line of scrimmage, it's a gong show right now, and you can't win football games if you can't dominate at the line of scrimmage.
What are you sensing in terms of the morale of this group? Are they staying level-headed? Are they being patient through this, or are we starting to get a little bit of that, discomfort? And are we going to see any real panic or any action from that group? How's the morale?
I think over the first few weeks of the season, the morale was good. I mean, they were trying to figure things out. They knew it was going to take some time to gel. But over the last couple of weeks, I've started to see some heads hanging. You look at Mike Riley in that game in Saskatchewan, and just the expression on his face. He was frustrated. He was done. I think frustration with Mike Riley is a key indicator of where this team is right now. He's a guy that's pretty level-headed, doesn't get too frustrated, but he's showing that frustration in several ways this year, mostly from getting hit constantly, but he's also got into a fan altercation walking off the field a couple weeks ago. And, so the frustration is definitely setting in. Not only with the players, but with the fans as well.
Two-part question. What pressure is the head coach under? He's a well-regarded head coach, but is off to a terrible start. And this is going to sound like a real Saskatchewan question because we got frustrated watching a very talented Duron Carter for 2 years in Saskatchewan wear out his welcome. And I'm just wondering how close is Duron Carter to wearing out his welcome in BC?
I don't think he's close at all, and I find it kind of humorous on Twitter where people pick him out as the target. I don't think you can judge any receiver on this team until they get an offensive line and Mike Riley has time to throw the ball. I mean, obviously Brian Burnham is getting his catches. He's the primary receiver in this group, so that's expected. But when your quarterback doesn't have time to throw the ball, receivers can't run their routes. I'm not sure how you can judge any receiver on this team. Talking to people with the Lions, Duron Carter is loved by his teammates. He's not causing problems here. The stats aren't there. The performance isn't there. But at the same time, I really don't believe he's a problem at this point. As far as Devon Claybrooks goes, this is his first year as a head coach. There's going to be some growing pains, I think, where the Lions may have underestimated things a little bit, where the hiring of his assistant coaches, who are all basically 1 year or first year assistant coaches, with the exception of Rich Stubler and Jarius Jackson. I'm not convinced Jarius Jackson, the offensive coordinator on this team, if it wasn't for the salary salary cap. I think at this point, Devon Claybrooks is getting a bit of a pass, besides the people who want him to straighten his hat out, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think that, he's going to get some time to right the ship here, and I don't expect him to be in much trouble.
Marshall has a question, but can you please turn your hat like Claybrook style? If you're going to support him, Brian. Go ahead, Mark. There you go. Hey, you look just
Yes.
like him. Okay, go ahead,
I need a
Marshall.
little bit of pinch between your cheek and gum over here, so that then you look exactly like him. What was my question? Oh, I don't know if you heard us talking before we got you on the air, but I've been saying for probably the last 5 or 6 weeks that there needs to be a good analysis done at the end of the year for those teams that spent, like the BC Lions, a whole bunch of money on their starting quarterback at the expense of not having as much money for the rest of the team. I'm just wondering, is that kind of discussion happening at all in BC?
Oh, absolutely. I think the fan base is criticizing Ed Hervey for tying up all his eggs in one basket. But, as I said earlier, I think that can be done if you can go out and scout and find players to come in that are talented football players. I don't think the Lions scouting staff has done that. I'm not sure how you fix this. I think at this point in the season, there's no easy fixes for this team because there just aren't the players out there that you can bring in. Even with NFL cuts, these guys come in, they have to learn the Canadian game. It's going to take them weeks to do that. They just acquired Justin Renfro, a tackle luxury, who, I've talked to some people in Calgary. They say he's a good player, so hopefully he can come in and help. But, he wasn't starting there. So, I don't think that there's any quick fixes here. Certainly that's going to be analyzed and picked apart if the season continues the way it is. And, right now, with as many problems as this football team has, I'm not sure it can be fixed this year. There's definitely going to be an autopsy on this team at the end of the season, and we're going to see what they do about this situation, whether Mike Riley has to suck it up and take a bit of a restructured contract to get some more guys in here. Suk Chung, he's also making a fair bit of money, so we're going to have to see what happens.
Is it hard to criticize the Lions, Brian? Because like I said, you let it fly, but they're very good to you, right? They put their players and staff on your podcast and so forth. Does that make it hard for you to be extra critical?
Oh, I have to bite my tongue a lot of times. What I say is pretty restrained, I think. But I'm a long-time season ticket holder. I've been a fan of this team for 43 years. So, it hurts when the team's not playing well. And when we do a podcast, it just seems like we keep talking about the same things and nothing's changing. And it's not just this year. It goes back a couple of years with Wally Bono as well. This team has not performed up to its standards that I've been used to as a Lions fan. They're a perennial playoff team, and that hasn't been the case the last few years. I'm willing to give this team a chance to sort things out. I mean, Ed Hervey is putting his stamp on this team, and so far, I don't think he's getting a passing grade. But at the same time, I'm not going anywhere. I'm a Lions fan, and we're going to keep doing our podcast and keep trying to promote Lions football because, one of the things that I want to see is fans back in that stadium. And Rod, I know you've been in BC Place when it's been packed to the brim, and it's a loud stadium and it can have an impact on the game. But right now, the fans are tuning it out, and I'm really worried about the franchise as a whole. I'm hoping that David Braley is eventually going to sell the team to local ownership because I don't think having an absentee owner, is a good thing for this market right now. They need somebody in this market that can, engage with the fan base, engage with the businesses in the community, and understand the challenges in this market. And I don't think David Braley can do that sitting in Hamilton. And I have all the respect in the world for David Braley. He saved this franchise. He saved franchise in this league, and he's been great for the CFL. But I think at this time, it's critical that the Lions get local ownership.
Brian, lastly, I've heard from two really good sources that there is a movement afoot to build an outdoor stadium in the lower mainland somewhere. I mean, you're out there. I don't know the geography as well, obviously, as you would, but 30,000 seats, outdoor. Cricket might be the primary sport, but who cares? Good. At least they get it built, and the Lions would play there too. Have you heard any of that? Is this a possibility?
I haven't heard anything like that for a long time. At one time, Caps wanted to build a stadium down on the waterfront, downtown Vancouver, but that got nixed. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. They spent a lot of money on BC Place, $500 million, I think it was. So I don't see any government money coming for that. It would have to be privately funded. I don't think David Braley's in a position or has any desire to be involved with that. So I'm not sure who would be building it. But I wouldn't want the Lions playing in a cricket stadium. I would want it to, be designed for football and soccer and have good sight lines and things like that. So I don't know where they would build it, probably out in Surrey. I think that's the only place that has enough land where they could do something like that. And that may not be a bad thing either, getting it out of downtown. At one time, it was desirable to be downtown because of the transit options and, everybody could come downtown. But the traffic in this city is so bad right now that a lot of people, and it's reflected in the attendance that we see at BC Place, a lot of people are just watching on TV. The Lions still have their fans. The TV numbers are fantastic. It's just that people, the cost of living in Vancouver is very high. It's tough for people to, get off work, go get their kids, get back downtown Vancouver because of the challenges. And then you add in the $30 parking and the cost of concessions at BC Place, which the Lions don't get a dime of, by the way. And, I think that it's a tough situation for a lot of people. And with big high def TVs, people are just choosing to forego all that and watch the games on TV.
Well, Brian, we've taken up enough of your time, but we got a lot out of this report, and I appreciate you coming on. Enjoy the rest of the bye, and we'll catch up here later on in the season.
All right, thanks. It's going to be great to not have to watch this football team for a week anyway.
Right. All right. Thank you, Brian.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.